And when
What?
Biden appointed her border czar in March 2021, right? She talked to the president of Guatemala twice, said that the root cause of immigration was violence against LGBTQ people in the
That's
northern
not true?
triangle countries. And then by June, her office was saying, that's not our job, you guys. We're totally not even doing that anymore.
It's incredible to me that, and this is the issue too, where you can't have these state officials coming in and running immigration, because immigration is a federal matter, and Title 8, which is the immigration under the INA, it's a very nebulous situation. And unless you work in immigration and you've done that type of law enforcement before, you're really not going to understand it. So state officials have no concept. She said a million times in her interviews, oh, I was the only prosecutor to prosecute transnational crime. Dude, you're in San Francisco. Like, you weren't dealing with anything really going on at the border. Like, come on. By the time you're dealing with it, you're like 5 or 7 levels removed from the organization.
I've heard that no one's even confirmed she tried any cases.
Yeah, probably. I mean,
if you look at it, I saw a breakdown and it was probably maybe 10.
Yeah.
10? That's a big number.
Big number. Yeah.
And how many?
And then anything, to be honest, anything that's like actually sexy like that, it's going to go to the feds. It's not going to go to the state, man. Like the feds are going to take it.
Transnational crime.
Yeah,
It's not going to be some local prosecutor.
Yeah, if the local prosecutor takes it, you know it's a weak case, like the YSL case that Fannie Willis took.
Everybody knows how this goes. The local guy comes in and sees a murder, and then the feds come in and go, out of my way, this is my scene now. And it's like, hey, you can't throw me out of here, and the feds take over.
It's like on Matlock.
Exactly.
Yes.
We know
That's
exactly.
actually not how it really goes. Because
Don't you lie to us. We know what you're doing.
But
how many times have you walked into like a local cop and said, "Gad, here's my crime scene"?
You know what? It's so that's what they put in the movies, but that's actually like not true. Because like if you do that, that will mess you up. Because this is the thing, like the state and locals are like the most vital resource you have as a Fed, because the state and locals have information and resources a lot of times that you don't, where you can put more boots on the ground and help you out, especially if you're running like a large scale investigation. I always prefer to work with the state and locals over other Feds, because the state and locals will just go harder, because they'll go out there surveillance with you at 2 a.m. because they get overtime, versus the Feds won't. Yeah. So your state and local partners are super important. And the other beautiful thing is that they have state authority, and if they're a task force officer, they also have federal authority. So let's say you need a traffic stop done. He can call one of the local guys, traffic stop the guy, have him identified. You can get him on some type of state infraction, right? And meanwhile, you're running the federal investigation. They don't even know about it because they're getting T-stopped or something else. Or you can get them arrested on a state charge, use that as leverage to build an informant. So
wait,
many
can I
ways.
ask you a question?
Sure.
So you had Tom Homan was appointed to deal with the border and head up ICE. And he was talking on Charlie Kirk today, and it was actually the best interview I've seen because he actually got a chance to like lay everything out. But he was talking about what happens in sanctuary cities if the local and state law enforcement won't help. And he said that he would have to double up agents. How much do you think that the lack of local assistance to ICE would be a hindrance?
I can talk about this in detail. Okay, so I actually worked under Homan when I was an agent with Homeland. And the way sanctuary cities work, and there's a bunch of them in the United States. We can use San Francisco, Austin, New York City, et cetera. Your typical blue cities. The way it works is this. Let's say someone gets arrested for a DUI. They suspect that he's an illegal alien, whatever it may be, but state authorities don't have immigration authority, so they can't really determine alienage. So what ends up happening is they'll arrest them, and ICE in that jurisdiction, typically, they'll get a manifest of everyone that's arrested. Mm-hmm. If they see someone they think is an illegal alien, right, because they'll run the immigration checks, etc., they'll put something called the detainer on that individual, and then the state and locals are supposed to hold him for ICE to come. So when he gets out on bond or whatever, immigration is there, ready to lock them up.
When we've seen all these reports about some horrible person raped some child in Massachusetts, and it'll say that they were held on a detainer, but then they wouldn't turn them over to ICE.
Yes, because what will happen is when it's time to release the guy, they won't notify ICE. They'll just let him go because they're like, we're a sanctuary city. We don't want to deal with this. We're not going to help you guys. So they won't hold the body. And then the guy will get released. And that's how you end up with a lot of these problems. So, and I mean, hell, it's gotten so bad. I'll never forget this vividly. We had a arrest warrant for a guy in Austin, Texas. This is maybe 10 years ago. And it was for human smuggling, which is a felony, 8 U.S.C. 3024. Anybody can look it up. It's a federal felony, but it's under the INA. So we get an arrest warrant for this guy, want to go pick him up because he was a coordinator moving illegal aliens into the United States through Laredo, Texas, into Austin, which was one of the
He was like a drug dealer of people.
Exactly. Which illegal aliens, which I can explain this too, all illegal aliens that come into the United States are typically utilizing some type of human smuggling organization to get in. It's a very refined process because the cartels run it and there needs to be money made, but that's a whole other example. But the point is that this guy, we had an arrest warrant for him, federal arrest warrant. We tell Austin PD, hey, We want some marked units. We're going to go out and get this guy. This is the address. They didn't want to come out. And we're like, why not? This is a federal warrant. No, like it's immigration. I don't know. It's like, no, dude. Yeah, it's an immigration violation, but it's a felony. Like this is an arrest, a federal arrest warrant. Yeah, no, we're gonna stand down on this. And this happens all over the place in the United States. And this is a big reason why Immigration Customs Enforcement, because there was two different agencies. There was Immigration Customs Enforcement Office of Investigations. That's where the special agents were, and then Enforcement Removal Operations. ICE Office of Investigations changed their name to Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, to not have the immigration in their name so that people don't think that's all they do, because they also have customs authority too, et cetera. So they had to rebrand because it was so difficult to get state and locals on board with conducting some of these operations.
Interesting.
That's how bad it is.
So that is going to be a hindrance to him.
It's very bad. Anytime you see one of these illegal aliens getting out of a local jail, 9 out of 10 times, a detainer wasn't honored that was placed by ICE.
There was one store, I think it was in Ohio, that the federal government brought in illegal immigrants and said, hey, can you hold these guys for us real quick, just for overnight, because we need somewhere for them to stay? And the local sheriffs, they were like, yeah, for sure, bring them in. And then the feds ran off.
Oh, yeah.
And then like the next day, the sheriff woke up and they're like, what do we do? Like, we got all these illegal, and they were like, let them go. So they just let them go into these small towns.
Yeah,
that's what's been going on under the Biden administration.
That's so
ridiculous.
Messed up.
Well, and the other thing too, I find it interesting because when Kamala would do her interviews or her debates or whatever, and she would always talk about, oh, I was going to pass this immigration bill, I was going to hire this many more Border Patrol agents, and Trump actually stopped the bill from passing because he needed a problem campaign on blah 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 blah. I could tell you this irrefutably: when I was in Laredo, Texas, Trump was way better and more efficient at getting rid of illegal aliens coming into the United States by far, not even a comparison. And the reason why is because when these illegal aliens would come into the United States, and this is why I'm so big on Homeland needs to be the Secretary of Homeland Security, not just the borders are, because he needs to oversee all the immigration agencies. When aliens would come in, they would get something called an expedited removal. And an expedited removal, what it is that person is deported back to Mexico within 2 weeks of them coming in. Why is this important? This is important because he doesn't burden up the immigration system that we have. Because in the immigration world, we have immigration judges, etc. So they come in, they process them, fingerprint them, etc., put them into AFIS, all this other stuff in the database, assign an alien number, and then they deport them within 2 weeks. Versus what they're doing now is, and I think you spoke with one of my buddies, Zach Apotheker from Border Patrol. He talked about this as well when I had him on, is what they're doing now. A lot of these aliens are coming in, they're getting something called a notice to appear, release unknown recognizance, ROR. So not only are they allowed to stay, they're sent to where they wanted to go. They're given paperwork, and then they're supposed to show up to see an immigration judge. But this might not happen for years because the immigration system is so backed up.
Yeah.
So backed up. So, but under Trump, we didn't have that crap. We were sending everybody back. And then on top of that, to get better, if you got caught more than once, you would get hit with a felony called 8 U.S.C. 3026, illegal reentry. So, and we were prosecuting these guys. Border Patrol was prosecuting them. HSI was prosecuting them. It was so many people that were prosecuting for that even Border Patrol took some of those cases for felony prosecution. So we were way harder on the border under the Trump administration than under the Biden-Harris administration. And anyone that says otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about.
You can just see the numbers.
Yeah,
like the graph is just like it goes red, blue. It's like blue, red, and then blue, and it skyrockets under Joe Biden.
Yeah, and
that's what we know about.
That's the magic. That's the blessed graph, right? Is that the blessed chart?
And here's the crazy part: like they might not be counting certain deportations because a lot of aliens come in, get caught, and they'll just voluntarily leave. Or the expedited removal I mentioned. I don't know how they're compiling their statistics, if they're compiling every single deportation that comes in and how they're processing it. Because when an illegal alien comes into the United States and law enforcement encounters them, there's multiple ways to process that alien and then remove that alien.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But what, Biden doesn't do it? They basically dismissed all the cases without adjudicating them, said, I guess you live here now.
Well, yeah, because they basically let him in.
Mass amnesty.
Right? That's why they had that CBP-1 app.
It's like pseudo amnesty where they said, oh, you're here. Well, you better go to court. Then a month later, they're like, don't worry about court. So there's no official status, but you're just here.
But they have no legal status.
Not even a month. It could be years, Tim, because the immigration system is so backlogged.
No, what I'm saying is when they came in and they gave them, you better go to court, a month later, they would call in and they'd be like, no, we canceled your court appearance. Bye. Click. And so they were in limbo. They have no official status, but they also have no enforcement action against them. So they just stay here and work.
That happens sometimes.
They were doing that to hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
That was Biden's pseudo amnesty that he granted, where basically the Biden admin dumped like 300 cases saying we're not going to even bother with these, creating. Dude, I got to tell you, the Democrats were creating a surf class.
They sure were, on purpose.
People who can't vote, people who struggle to get access to the system, but who are also not citizens, and they were going to have them do low-skilled labor. So you have a working class that can't vote and affect your system.
And they were even saying this
They get
blatantly.
congressional seats by it.
Right.
So what the Democrats have then is a congressional seat will be created with 600,000 American citizens and then 175,000 illegal immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
That gives the Democrat a position where that 175K cannot vote, so they get free political power.
Yeah.
That's insane.
No, it's ridiculous. And Mayorkas needs to be removed immediately. It's absolutely ridiculous. Because the thing is, with the Secretary of Homeland Security, they are the ultimate immigration official because they are over all the law enforcement agencies and all the agencies that oversee immigration into the country, right? Outside of non-immigrant visas, which is the State Department. That's a whole other thing. But this has been a huge failure from a border security standpoint, and Mayorkas needs to be removed. You need to put people in that are more aggressive.
There was a Texas judge recently who said that a plan that the Biden-Harris administration put into place to essentially grant legal status to the spouses and stepchildren who are illegal, but they're connected to Americans, they wiped that out and said you can't just automatically give these people status just because they are here. And I thought that was kind of great.
I love this this headline from the Daily Beast,
somehow,
though. We're not going to read the story because it's locked, but Trump borders are to undocumented immigrants. We are coming for you.
That's I mean, there's literally
Homan said that.
literally a mandate.
I know, but
for
like,
that.
Yeah.
The American
you're
people
here illegally. What?
The
There is a
American
mandate
people, it's
for it.
something like 70%, 75% of the
It was a
American
huge
people have
number.
said, we believe that, or we want to see deportations.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, we just want to, control the border. Straight up, we're comfortable with the things that are going to happen when you start deporting people.
Well-
If 70% of the American people believe that, it doesn't matter how uncomfortable the talking heads on the internet or the talking heads on TV are with it. That's what the American people want. That's part of why Donald Trump was elected.
And I'll say this too. So immigration, it's kind of a catch-22, right? If you enforce it, people look at you as a family wrecker, evil, etc. But if you don't do it, obviously you look at you're not doing your job. And it's kind of like a political hot potato. And I could say this because I've worked under both Obama, Trump, and Biden, on 3 different presidents. And what I will tell you is when there's a Democrat in office, ICE enforcement removal operations, who is responsible for the domestic location and apprehension of illegal aliens that are in the country, they are significantly neutered when there's a Democrat in office. Everyone knows this, right? That's on the job, that they're not going to go out and pick up aliens like they normally do. Unless it's like a violent criminal alien, they're typically not going to do their job like they're supposed to. They're just hanging around when the Democrats in. So, but when Trump came in, everyone's getting deported. They were going out. They were doing raids. ICE was actually doing their job on the ERO side. So it's a very it's an agency that's contingent upon who's in office.
Yeah, there
Unfortunately.
was one of the big stories that we had seen during the Trump administration was that there were a bunch of meat processing plants. They raided, they arrested, I think, 800 individuals. And then this is what I love to hate about the corporate press. The corporate press shows up to a job fair after the fact, and they see Americans, white Americans, and we're aghast. There was like a white guy walking up to the job fair, and they were like, "Sir, what are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm here for a job." And they were like, "Why would you want to work this low-skilled job? These are jobs Americans hate." And he goes, "It pays more than the gas station." Like, these are jobs Americans wanted.
Yeah.
And they were giving them to non-citizens.
I find that to be really shocking as well. And this is something you repeatedly hear from Democrats, is that Americans don't want to take these jobs. I have not met an American who's like, oh, there's a job or I could suck money off the government. I think I'll just suck money off the government. Like, that's not an American ethos. It's not what any of us are raised to really think. We're raised to say, like, we want to take care of ourselves. We want to provide for our families. We don't want to be a burden to the government. And we certainly don't want the government to be that closely involved in our lives. And these are jobs that Americans are perfectly happy to take. Chuck Schumer thinks that Americans don't want jobs, and I think that's totally bogus. And I'm really stoked to see, Trump call that out repeatedly.
It's
to the point where he showed up and worked the fryer.
That was great. And I loved Bill Burr's bit on SNL. He was getting ragged on by a lot of people, but no, he was said when Donald Trump stood behind that counter is when he was like, you could tell he was truly happy. He was like, wow, this is where they do the French fries. I agree. Like Trump was so excited to be that. That's not a bad thing. That was great. Trump was really excited to make the French fries, and he was like, Trump put extra fries in, and he's like, someone's going to be really happy when they. Yes, that's all true. Trump was super excited to give people food.
Yeah,
I thought that was amazing.
And I do want to say, because you mentioned worksite enforcement, which you mentioned when they raided the thing. That's something called worksite enforcement. HSI does those a lot of the times.
It happened just here like a week ago, or a few days ago.
So worksite enforcement
Not here at Timcast.
under Democrats. Worksite enforcement under Democrats almost always is much harder to pull off, because the thing is that you're not going to do a worksite enforcement case and go after the company and the people that employed the illegal aliens unless it's like egregious whenever you have Democrats in, right? We're talking about hundreds of illegal aliens, deplorable work conditions, etc. But under Trump or whatever, hey, look, he's got this many guys employed. This is a problem, etc. Especially in this area, it was way easier to get worksite enforcement cases done.
So some of the people who work here are mentioning that there's a bunch of IHOPs in the area, and they all got raided, and people are getting taken out and stuff, like putting cars.